My name's Claire Aguilar, and I'm a producer. I'm very happy to moderate this Q&A for American Sons, this amazing film that we've just seen. So let me introduce our participants on the panel, and go left to right. This is Fernando Cano, producer on the film. And next to Fernando is Laura Varela, who is the producer on the film. And we have the pleasure of having April Villarreal Rodriguez, who is his sister. And then the director-producer of the film, Andrew J. Gonzalez. So thank you for this amazing film. I mean, I think it's one of the first films I've seen that really has the experience of someone who was serving in war from the grounds up, and it's just amazing how intimate it is because we don't see it from that side usually. Why don't we start with talking about the beginning of the project and how this came to be? Because I understand this was like 5-6 years ago, the beginning.
15?
Yeah, it started 15 years ago in October. Yeah, October 17th. Started 15 years ago when my brother unfortunately was killed in Afghanistan while he was serving for the Marine Corps. And, you know, the initial phone call was a shock. But about 6 months later, we received some of his video. And, you know, I watched it, I listened to it, and I didn't know what to do with it. And I did some research to find someone who was just like him. As you guys saw, he was incredibly raw. He was who he was unapologetically, and I needed to find somebody who was just like him. And so I did some research, and being from San Antonio, Texas, I found Laura, who had done another veteran film and gave that same vibe, that same energy of unapologetically who she was. And, you know, brought her this footage, and I was like, please, I don't know what to do with this. I don't know, you know, help me here. And, you know, we worked for a couple of years, 6-7 years, and we sat on it, and, you know, she told me, like, we're going to do something. We're going to do something with this. And we weren't sure what. Right, he had hours and hours of footage. This is a snippet of what he saw and what we have to offer. And then she brought in Andrew, and Andrew was that kismet piece to everything. And, you know, his vision was something I never saw, and it's brought to life in this film. And I couldn't ask for more. I feel like JB kind of guided us the entire way without us knowing.
Had JB been sending the footage back to you or your family? No, he just kept it.
Yeah, he had, unfortunately, he had that, you know, feeling like he might not make it back. He might not, but from the very beginning, he said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to make a documentary. I'm going to show what I'm going through. And so just kind of going through that feeling, he had the forethought to share his footage with his other Marine brothers, and they were the ones that gave him the footage. I don't know if you guys know, those of you that have served, but if you are killed in action, you do not have your electronics sent back to your family with the information on there. You know, they do clean your electronics, and it's completely empty. And so we wouldn't have had any of this had he not had that forethought of, let me share this with other people.
His story is just so poignant, but also becomes a story of a bigger experience, and just the crafting, looking at this footage, which is so remarkable, but also the crafting of including his buddies and the community is really well done. And I think that's kind of a question for Andrew and for Fernando about, like, just crafting these kind of multiple different not only formats, but also the story, because the story is a bigger story. The story is about JV and his experience, but it's also about his community, his family, this totality. Was that difficult to do in terms of?
Well, I wouldn't say that was difficult. I would say the entire project was very difficult to just create. You know, 8 years, and if you're filmmakers in the room, the fundraising part is really challenging. So. If you look about halfway through the film, almost halfway through the film, there's a scene where the sergeant and Ty, they hug. and Ty starts crying. And that is the very first time I pressed record on the camera. So it was just like this magical moment that appeared. And we knew that there was much more to this story than just, you know, the JV footage. That his brothers, what they were going through, what they were dealing with, was just deep, and that we were onto something. And so at the beginning, we thought that Ty was going to be this, you know, this main participant. And although he's very much in the film, over time he began to shy away, and ultimately recluse, as you saw in his apartment. He just, you know, he trusted his doctors a lot, and as you saw, there's a lot of pharmaceuticals involved, and so he continued to recluse. But that scene was the crux of fundraising. So, you know, if you've done any kind of fundraising or grant writing and stuff, you always have to include like a 5-minute sample, and that was the main piece that helped to shape everything that we did from then on out. And then it was just about being with the men and being with the families and asking questions and just investigating. So it wasn't like there was a strong plan involved. It was more like, you know, Loud and I, we work very similar. So it was like shoot, and then let's bring it home and let's sift through it, and then let's start to cut. So it's very much gather all the footage and then just start cutting through it, finding the best stuff, and then trying to assemble. So there was multiple rough cuts that we went through. You know, of course, we've been editing many different, you know, a 5-minute, a 15-minute, a 30-minute, all these different versions, and then we worked with an editing team, a producer and an editor, and it just, the vision was just not aligned with ours. And so that was a really challenging moment where we kind of didn't know what exactly to do. We just knew that relationship wasn't working. So we brought the footage home and we produced our own cut, and it just, you know, the third act just wasn't working. And so we brought in a consultant, a colleague of many year colleague of Laura's, and she just could see that the film needed to be non-chronological. It needed to go into these two worlds back and forth, which is how we originally envisioned the film, but some feedback we got from ITVS said they were confused about that. And then it just shied us away from doing that because of those comments that were made.
Yeah, that was always part of the narrative, where we knew that JV was going to be woven in between the stories, right, of these men. And I think going to that reunion that we were at, where we filmed Ty and Sincere, and then all the guys, there was also a reunion with the other guys there, that we saw how important it was for them to be together because they needed to catch up with each other, and that was very obvious. And then going to the reunions in San Antonio that your mother and yourself have been putting on every year, we also knew that was just so it was really touching when they would see each other. It was really touching when they would hug you and your mom. And so we knew that the story we wanted to tell was JV woven in between the story of these guys getting better. That's what we had thought originally.
And one thing that never changed from the very first thing was JV at the beginning in that little shack, JV at the end saying goodbye. That never has changed, no matter what we made. If it was 5 minutes, if it was 72 minutes, always the button in. So we knew that he had to appear
in a span of 20 years.
Exactly.
In that big span, yeah. The access is pretty remarkable in the film because these are Marines